to me, Mike, and we'll get into this a little later, I am shocked that Mike Vrabel has had one interview in almost 2 weeks. Explain that to me. I need to know that. I truly, I'd love to know. Well, whenever you want to get into that, at some point in this show, I want to hear Mike Florio explain why in the 11 days since he's been fired that Mike Vrabel has talked to one team. And let's be honest, he is at best the fallback coach for the Chargers if they can't get Jim Harbaugh. So anyway, I didn't mean to veer off into
let's
Neverland.
do it now. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
One of the, it's not Neverland. It's a hot topic. One of the beauties of this show is we'll talk about whatever we want, and I'll worry later about getting in trouble with the control room for going off the script. I think here's my quick theory, and I haven't really sat down and thought about it. This is just kind of what percolates from paying attention to what's going on. I think he deliberately decided to lay low and see how the landscape shakes out after he was fired last Tuesday. And obviously, what's going to happen in New England? Belichick's out. They activate the succession plan for Gerard Mayo, so that's gone. You wait and see what's going to happen with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. I think he did that. You wait and see what's going to happen in Dallas and Philly. It just happened yesterday that they began to activate the Mike Vrabel interview cycle. There's 3 teams in all that I think are planning to talk to him, and some momentum is building for him in Seattle, Peter, because to your point earlier, good luck selling Dan Quinn to the 12s if you're John Schneider. Even if Dan Quinn was the guy that Schneider wanted, and a lot of people as of last weekend were saying Quinn's got that job in Seattle, they're bringing Quinn back to Seattle where he was once a defensive coordinator before he became coach of the Falcons. If you can't do that now, Vrabel becomes the guy that is building steam. So I think he's getting a job. I think he deliberately decided to not rush into it because what's going to happen in New England, what's going to happen in Pittsburgh, what's going to happen in Dallas, what's going to happen in Philly, and there's still one wild card out there we talked about last week. What's going to happen in Kansas City once they're done? Is Andy Reid going to tap out and walk away? Because if I'm Vrabel, I want to wait and see what happens there too. He played there 2 years, and that's the only team that's got Patrick Mahomes. So I think he's deliberately taking his time to make sure he knows the full universe of openings before he commits to one of them.
But that's I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Why wouldn't teams at least interview him now? And why wouldn't he interview with them? That's not taking a job. That's sitting down across the table from Josh Harris and whoever else, Adam Peters, just to see, hey, is there a possibility we could work together? It's sitting across the table from, from David Tepper or whoever in Carolina, wherever. I just think it's weird. And by the way, there is not a more perfect match in this coaching season. Not a more perfect match than Mike Vrabel and John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks. There is a no-nonsense coach who will put away, and again, look, Pete Carroll, fantastic for that organization. But in my opinion, I think that one of the things that probably a lot of guys in that team, in that organization, they just started rolling their eyes at the end about Pete Carroll and the cheerleader stuff. So Mike Vrabel, I don't think you're going to roll your eyes at Mike Vrabel because he's one of those guys from the Belichick school. You do it my way or it's the highway. And John Schneider has proven over time that he can bring in the players, that he can go find a quarterback with the 75th pick. I'll get you the players. You just coach this team. I love Mike Vrabel in Seattle, and I think would be a match made in heaven for the Seahawks.
The Chargers, the Seahawks, the Falcons, the 3 teams that are interested in interviewing Vrabel, and he's interested apparently in interviewing with them. To your point about why wouldn't Vrabel go interview for some of these jobs, first of all, I would pay a lot of money to sit in the room for a Mike Vrabel, David Tepper meeting. I would love that because Mike Vrabel would sit down and tell David Tepper right out of the gates everything he's doing wrong. And not in a rude way, in a very matter-of-fact, this is what you're doing wrong. Starting with don't throw drinks on fans, but that one's fairly obvious. I just think that Vrabel doesn't like to waste his time, and Vrabel doesn't like to waste anyone else's time. And for some of these interviews, before he knows what all's out there and what his plan is, it's potentially a waste of time to go through the motions, to put together your plan for what you're going to do to try to get this team to make you an offer. You got to go in there and sell yourself. I think he needs to just feel like he's in the right mindset to go in and sell himself. And a lot of that is, what's the lay of the land before I say, all right, these are the jobs where I think I can go in and make a pretty good pitch for myself. And I'm willing to spend my time, and I'm willing to take up their time to do it. Like you said, he's very no-nonsense, and he doesn't suffer fools, and he's going to tell it like it is. I think he just wanted to wait and see who all is on this list. Where are the spots? And okay, now that we know where the spots are, for the most part, we can go forward with our plan. That's what I think he's doing. He deliberately, I believe, laid low last week to let it all kind of play out. And now it's playing out. And I agree with you. Seattle makes a ton of sense. And with Dan Quinn DQ is DQ'd from being a head coach after giving up 48 to the Packers. Vrabel is, I think the Seahawks could do a hell of a lot worse than Mike Vrabel, and I think those fans would be thrilled if they get him.
You know, the one other thing about Seattle that I think is interesting this year, I fully expect them to sort of pluck one of these quarterbacks, and not necessarily in the first round, because John Schneider, the one thing I love about him as a scout is that he doesn't care what I shouldn't say that. I think he wants to listen to the other scouts, and he'd like to know the opinion of people who he respects in the business about what they think about different players. But at the end of the day, if he likes a quarterback, he doesn't care if he's the 19th rated quarterback on Mel Kiper's board. He doesn't care that Russell Wilson, that, you know, there was a bunch of snickering in draft rooms across the country in 2012 when he picked Russell Wilson 75th overall. And he just simply doesn't care. That is what I want in my general manager. I want somebody with the absolute courage of his convictions who can walk in. Let's say he gets Vrabel. You know what he did when he drafted Russell Wilson? He came in the previous year from scouting trips. He came in after watching Russell Wilson square off with Kirk Cousins in the Big Ten championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium, in which they had an absolute explosive game with two quarterbacks playing great. And he came back to Seattle and he told Pete Carroll, I got our guy, in essence. You have got to look at this guy. And I give Pete Carroll a lot of credit for this, because there are many coaches in the NFL who say, I'm not taking a 5'10", 5'11" quarterback. You're crazy. I'm not doing that. But Pete Carroll bought into it. The rest is history. You can look at recent history and say, well, geez, how great was Russell Wilson? He was great. For a decade, he made the Seahawks matter every weekend. And so I just think the reason why I love this match is that John Schneider is going to get a quarterback. I don't know if it's Michael Penix. I don't know who it is. Who knows? He's going to get a quarterback who you can win with in the NFL, mark my words. And Mike Vrabel, I'll tell you, that's the place I would want to go if I were Vrabel.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.